George Washington Gale was essentially an itinerant preacher, going from town to town in upstate New York and preaching. I'm not sure he ever really understood what the effect his preaching was having until he made a conversion at a revival meeting. The conversion was Charles Grandison Finney, and he went on to be probably the most famous evangelistic preacher of the 19th century. I guess equivalent to our Billy Graham today. He was that well known. After he had been converted, Gale and Finney had some controversy over what Finney's message was and how he was preaching, and Gale felt it was important that young men be trained for the ministry, that they be educated. So many ministers in those days weren't trained. They were just answering the call that they felt, and Gale thought it was important for them to be grounded in things like Greek and Hebrew and the other literature and other things that made a good minister. And he eventually turned his eyes west, thinking that as more and more people came out to Illinois and other places, that there would be an additional need for ministers, and he thought those ministers should be trained. It was then that he hit upon the idea of starting a college out here to train ministers, and that was the dawning of his plan. He obviously was successful because he had a lot of people that subscribed, gave a lot of money, and more importantly, they gave their lives. They came out here to help him with his vision. And that's how the town, the college, and the church got started, all as one entity. Gale told a great story about how he received his final push to become a minister. He'd been studying at the Princeton Theological Seminary, but he had had a very rough upbringing. He was orphaned young. He had to live with his sisters in various places in upstate New York, and he also suffered from a bad stomach, is all we know for sure. But he was ill for a lot of his life, in fact his entire life. He explains that one time he was desolate and discouraged about what he was going to do with his life, and he went out into the woods. He describes a little arbor that he had built where he went out and apparently meditated and was by himself out there. He took his Bible with him, and he said the Bible fell open to Psalm 118 verse 17. You shall not die but live and preach the word of the Lord. And he took that as a sign that he should in fact be a minister, and that guided his calling from then on.